Well, what can I say, my dear friends? That was perfection. We just got chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, From the Desert Comes a Stranger, and I'm lost for words. In my opinion, that was nothing short of a love letter to Star Wars fans, and I'm so grateful for Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau who co-wrote this episode, and as we know, Dave Filoni directed it. Granted, Boba himself barely got 10 seconds of screen time, but this episode did so much to further the plot and get us all excited for next week's big season finale. Now let's get the obvious out of the way first. This episode was loaded with huge character appearances. Now, since there is so much to break down, this video is just going to focus on the most important elements, Easter eggs, references, and even a retcon right at the end. I'm going to be making so many videos on this episode, so do stay tuned. But without much further ado, and without any more jibber jabber, let's just get straight to it. At the beginning of the episode, the Pykes have found their way to Mos Pelgo, and then we get a familiar face, Marshal Cobb Vanth, who is not going to take any BS. He doesn't want any spice running through his territory. And can I just say, Timothy Olyphant looked fantastic. Now later in the episode, when Mando comes to him for help, we learn that the name Mos Pelgo has been changed to Freetown. This is actually a direct reference to Chuck Wendig's Empire's End, which is part of the Aftermath trilogy, the books where Cobb Vanth first debuted. He was the Marshal of Freetown, but in The Mandalorian Season 2, they used the name Mos Pelgo, but now it's been changed to match the books, and is now called Freetown. Most likely in recognition of the citizens finally being able to live in peace after the end of the Red Key Raider debacle, and of course the Crate Dragon incident. But as Mando warns him, there is no trouble now, but it doesn't guarantee that that will always be the case. Now we're gonna come back to Freetown later because we need to talk about that huge cameo. As teased at the end of chapter 5, Mando goes to visit Grogu, or at least he attempted to. We don't know the exact planet this is on, but it's a gorgeous green forest planet, very reminiscent of somewhere like Yavin 4, Agent Kloss, or Tython, but it's neither of those, and does have distinct, noticeably different features. Unfortunately guys, the audio description does not tell us, but I'm sure in an episode guide or something like that, we will find out in the week. As soon as R2-D2 appeared, I punched the air. That guy is the heart and soul of Star Wars. George Lucas always knew that to be the case, and as we know, Jon Favreau has a very deep appreciation for this character. I loved him at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2, but seeing him here again brought the biggest smile to my face. So R2-D2 guides Mando to the site of Luke's Jedi Academy, which is being built, and while Grogu would technically be the first student of the Skywalker Academy, we know that Luke briefly trained Princess Leia before she had a vision of where her path would lead if she continued. And that was before all of this, briefly after Return of the Jedi. So Mando waits at the site of the temple being built, and after a while, Ahsoka appears. I don't think anyone expected her to feature in this series, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. But in retrospect, given that this was Dave Filoni's episode, I'm not too surprised. And my heart just melted the moment she interacted with R2 again, harkening all the way back to the Clone Wars. And I also had a good old chuckle when Mando asked her how she knows Luke, and she said that she's an old family friend. Mando was dying to see his son again, but as Ahsoka warns, if Grogu does see Din, it's just going to confuse him. If he is going to train to become a Jedi, he can't have any emotional attachments. But Ahsoka does promise to hand deliver the gift to Luke, and when she does, even Luke realizes that ultimately, Grogu is conflicted and he's got to make a choice. A choice that was left as a cliffhanger at the end of the episode. And Luke even says, sometimes I wonder if his heart is in it. And we've got to talk about how incredible Luke looks compared to in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. They cleaned up the visuals tenfold, and the deepfake algorithm used truly captured Mark Hamill's facial expressions really well. And I wasn't distracted at all by the use of deepfake. Now going back to Ahsoka, there are two really interesting things we need to talk about. First of all, she knows where Luke's academy is being built, and the two have clearly met before. As Star Wars fans, we've often spoke about what that encounter would look like, and if she would bring up that Luke's father was her former master. Well, that conversation clearly already happened off-screen, but in either case, it was great to see the two interact, and there were a few hints that Luke looks up to Ahsoka as a sort of mentor figure, and I think she's someone he can go to for advice. Another heart-wrenching moment is when Ahsoka said that he's so much like his father, something that Luke obviously feared in the original trilogy, but ultimately is a great thing now after having resisted the dark side. He didn't fall as his father did, and even before Anakin became Vader, he had plenty of admirable traits as a Jedi, traits that Ahsoka remembers very well. And now that we've seen Ahsoka interact with Luke, I'm fascinated to see an interaction between her and Anakin's Force Ghost in the Ahsoka series, as we know has been rumoured after Hayden Christensen was confirmed for the show. Another major reference in this scene is when Ahsoka tells Luke to to trust his instincts, advice that Obi-Wan gave him in A New Hope. And the second thing about Ahsoka is what she's up to, and a more pressing question, where does her and Sabine Wren's search for Ezra fit into all of this? Is she still looking? Has the search even begun, or is it over? I'm sure the Ahsoka series is going to clear up the timeline of events a little bit better, because some fans believe that the epilogue at the end of Star Wars Rebels might take place after the events of The Mandalorian Season 2 and subsequently the events of this episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Not to dwell on this scene for too long, but also notice the way that Luke asks, will I ever see you again, in the same way that Anakin did in The Phantom Menace before leaving his mother. I think that this demonstrates the sort of maternal influence that Ahsoka may have had on Luke in the years following episode 6. They're only just beginning to establish their relationship, but it's clear that she's playing a role in the lives of Luke and Grogu. So now we've just got to talk about the training sequences between Luke and Grogu. We get so many references to the original trilogy, with the combat remote from A New Hope, name-dropping Yoda as someone Grogu reminds Luke of, and of course the training sequence of Grogu on Luke's back, which is a major callback to when Yoda trained Luke in Empire. And speaking of Grogu, Luke tells him that he can help him remember what it's like, quote, back home, and then we see the most epic and unprecedented flashback to the Jedi Temple during Order 66. Of course, as we know from The Mandalorian Season 2, Grogu was rescued from the Great Jedi Purge and then hidden. We see a younger, scared Grogu watching on as the fricking 501st come in and start shooting down 3 Jedi. Now when I saw them, the ponytailed green lightsaber Jedi looked a lot like Sindralig, but it can't be him because Anakin's the one who dealt with him and his 2 Padawans. But this sequence is very clear that we're going to see who rescued Grogu. I want to break down this scene in more detail in a separate video, so do look out for that. Now as I mentioned earlier, Grogu has to make a choice, the big cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Will he take the chainmail suit and return to Din, or choose Yoda's lightsaber and train to become a Jedi? I personally hope he chooses Mando and the two can finally reunite very soon. But one thing that stood out is Luke has Yoda's lightsaber. This is a major retcon of the comics, something Lucasfilm seems very comfortable doing, even if the comics are canon. Specifically, the first issue of the Vader comics, where in the aftermath of Order 66, and after Yoda lost to Palpatine and then went into exile, Mas Amedda, as a symbol of the destruction of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire, destroyed Yoda's lightsaber, which we saw Yoda lose in Revenge of the Sith. But with that comic retconned, I wonder how, after all these years, it found its way into Luke's possession. That is a story I really want to see. We know that Luke was traveling the galaxy for Jedi artifacts, and I'm sure somehow somebody got hold of Yoda's saber, and it passed through many hands before Luke came across it and kept it. So what a tough choice Grogu has now got to make. His attachments are always going to hold him back if he does choose the Jedi path, and who knows, maybe Grogu will become the second ever Mandalorian Jedi, just like Tar Vizsla. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, let's address the big cameo of this episode, Cad Bane, or as I like to call him, Chad Bane, bumpsh. Now say what you will about what he looks like in live action, his entrance and physical presence were very menacing. My heart was f***ing racing, and I felt like a kid again, just completely absorbed by the magic of Star Wars. That scene also confirmed a theory I put forward a while back, that Cad Bane is indeed on the side of the Pykes, but I'm still convinced that he was hired by another big bad as the muscle of the Syndicate. The mayor being off-world is another clue that there is a bigger villain behind the Pykes. But I must say, when Cad Bane appeared, I wondered, where the hell is Todo? I need my fix of Seth Green, but he's probably back at the ship, and we're probably going to see him in the next episode. So then after a Western standoff, Cad Bane shoots one of my favourite characters, and the deputy as well, and as Cad Bane departs with the warning to stay out of the Pike Spice affairs, the Weequay bartender who we first saw in Season 2 gives the look that is telling that maybe he's changed his mind, and he might get the citizens of Freetown to join Boba's small group of allies, after earlier saying that the citizens want nothing to do with it. If not, then the group we have is our team: Boba, Fennec, the Gamorreans, Black Chrysanthemum, the Power Ranger biker gang, and of course Din Djarin. With one episode to go, it might be too late to see them recruit others, and I think, as Fennec said, the storm is about to break. This last episode next week is what it all comes down to. We're gonna see an all-out war, and I should also say, R.I.P. Garth Whip Sanctuary. An absolutely insane episode, and as I say, my dear Megalorians, I will be making more videos after this one, breaking down individual scenes, and also speculating on some really big moments. As for my review, my earlier statement says it all, and I'm going to give this one a solid 10 out of 10. These last 2 episodes have been peak Star Wars content, but I must say, it is a shame that Temuera Morrison has not been in the limelight in his own series. It's not felt like the Book of Boba Fett the last 2 episodes, but if this is the quality the Mandalorian Season 3 is going to have, I have no complaints. So now it's time to let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. As Boba says, speak freely. And also be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up if you enjoyed this one, subscribe if you're new, and a huge welcome if you are. And if you want access to over 100 videos not found here on YouTube, then click the link down below. It'll take you to my Patreon page. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.